We are concluding our Clemson Position 360 series with special teams, kind of a wild card, but one that swung quite a few games last year. Before I dive into that, I just want to remind you, this channel and this series has been sponsored by Ready Vets. If you need immediate care for your pet and you're in the Greenville, Taylor's area, they're open 7 days a week. They're open late. Just Google them, find them on your phone, save them on your phone in case you ever need them. They're available when your vet is not, and you can walk right in and get your pet taken care of. All right. So special teams last year, kind of a disaster to be quite frank. BT Potter departed after a long time really stabilizing the place kicking for Clemson. They already had 2 kickers on scholarship because they had Potter and they had Robert Gunn, who redshirted in 2022. So made sense. He kind of ascended to the favorite. There was a walk on Liam Boyd, but he didn't have a guaranteed scholarship. And so he left back to his home state of North Carolina to join the Tar Heels, where he eventually was the kickoff guy. But Robert Gunn III really struggled, was 1 for 4 through the first 3 games of the year. So before the Florida State game, things were looking quite bleak in that particular aspect of Clemson's game. Place kicking was not looking so good. It was a pretty big gap. So they went out and they got Jonathan Whites, who was a walk-on for 4 years, never kicked a field goal in an actual game, but they brought him back. He immediately becomes a starter. And in a big spot, they throw him out there. Maybe that was unwise, but they throw him out there to sort of clinch the game or build themselves a pretty tough lead for Florida State to come back on. He misses it. Florida State, of course, does come back and wins in overtime. Clemson on the year, they finished 60th in field goals made with 15, 114th in field goal percentage at 62.5. That tied for the worst field goal percentage in the ACC, tied with Syracuse. But Clemson attempted more, and so they had more misses. They actually had 3 more misses than Syracuse. Their 9 missed field goals on the year tied Ohio for the most in the entire nation. So pretty bad year for the special teams, no matter how you cut it. But it did end on a high note. So let's talk about that briefly. Jonathan Whites started off just 8 for his first 14, 57%. So, better than 1 for 4, but still really, really bad. But then in the last 2 games against South Carolina, Clemson's offense couldn't really get anything going. The defense was elite, had the game on lockdown, but at some point you're going to have to score some points, besides a Khalil Barnes pick 6 or the Khalil Barnes touchdown. You're going to have to do something. So it was Jonathan Whites they turned to. He made all 3 of his field goal attempts and a PAT. He scored 10 points in the game. The whole entire game, both teams only totaled 23 points. So Jonathan Whites was really the hero of the Palmetto Bowl. Then he does it again in the Gator Bowl high-scoring game, but he's 3 for 3, makes all the PATs, and Clemson wins by a hair at the very end. So really those 2 games, if he's 50% in those, you maybe don't, if he's 1 for 3 instead of 3 for 3, they don't win those games, right? So, or perhaps they don't win those games. So he goes out a winner, goes out on top, but on the whole, Whites was 14 for 20 on the year, still not great, but better than the team on a whole. When you add in the 1 for 4 start for Robert Gunn III, 15 for 24. So place kicking was a big issue. Aiden Swanson, a veteran punter, he was solid, 43.2 yards per punt, which is good for 43rd nationally. So not terrible, but also not great. He had a COVID year, so he will return, which gives Clemson a steady veteran high floor punter for next season. And in the return game, Clemson doesn't return many kickoffs. So Shipley didn't I think most of them, but it's almost not worth talking about. In the punt return game, they returned a lot more punts than they did kicks, 23, so almost double. But they only averaged 7.9 yards per punt return. So again, not a big part of sort of the Clemson game. Just it's be pretty conservative, call a lot of fair catches, kneel a lot, which I actually really strongly agree with, kneeling a lot on those kickoffs. The way they've changed the rules has sort of changed the game there. So now Jonathan Whites has moved on. This time for real, he can't come back again. And Robert Gunn III is still there. He's a redshirt freshman last year, so now he's a redshirt sophomore. But another true freshman comes into the fray, Nolan Hooser, spelled Hauser, pronounced Hooser, Nolan Hooser. He comes in from North Carolina. He's another scholarship kicker, so they once again have 2 kickers on scholarship. You're investing 2 kickers, at least while we're at 85 scholarships, probably put 3 on once they move up to 105 scholarships. It won't really matter. But for now, that's a big investment in kickers. You'd really like to see the kickers be average to really, frankly, above average if you're going to invest 2 scholarships in them. And I think with Nolan Hooser, you have a real shot of that. He looked awesome in the spring game. Obviously, very limited sample size, but it was 2 for 2, a 29-yarder, a 48-yarder. Job's certainly not his for sure, but you got to think if Robert Gunn has not fixed his accuracy issues, he may be relegated to just doing kickoff duties, which he did last year. He was very good on kickoff duties. So if that's the case, you've got a guy who's great at kickoff duties, and then you have a freshman who, if he could give Clemson some stability, you're feeling a lot better, because that was the big issue. And then Aiden Swanson, again, returns for 6th season. I don't know how much of a jump he makes from year 5 to 6, but he's going to be at least okay. And if he does make a little bit of progress, you've got a pretty good kicker, you've got a good kickoff man, and maybe Nolan Hooser could fix the field goal issue. Obviously, that's the most important part of special teams. Touchdowns are still going to be mostly Neal's. I could see maybe Jay Haynes, Jarvis Greens, the backup running backs, maybe Maffa, but I'd rather save his legs, not have him get unnecessarily hit there returning kicks. So maybe you see a little bit of that, but it's mostly Neal's and fair catches and just going out the back of the end zone. Punts could be interesting, though. Antonio Williams is healthy. Tyler Long, our freshman. I think you see the two of them, or it could be one of the two, but basically bounce back and forth. Those are who I view as the best options Clemson can go with. And I'd really love to see them get a little more aggressive. Back when Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback, Trevor Etienne was the running back, it didn't matter, right? Like, you're going to go down and score because you have super elite skill position talent, the best quarterback in the country. Play it safe, let them go score. But as much as the offense has struggled, and while I'm optimistic they'll struggle a lot less this year, would be nice to see some playmakers be a little bit more aggressive in the punt return game. And I think Antonio Williams and Tyler Brown both have a chance to do that. And there's so much depth at wide receiver, as long as everyone's staying healthy, at least for now. You figure they could take a few extra reps there as punt returners, and you're not overly worried about risking your top pass catchers there. So it would be fun to see that. But I think that what everyone's looking at, what everyone's thinking about is, will they fix the place kicking? I'm going to bet it's really early. I'll try to get this out before fall camp and before maybe we start getting answers. But I think Nolan Hooser has a chance to either push Robert Gunn III and he has to elevate his game, or if that's not the case, then I could see Hooser starting right away. And that could be a big relief, because that's got to be better. It swung the Florida State game last year. They make that kick. I think they probably win. It played a role in both the Duke and NC State games. Not saying that's why they lost, but it definitely played a role. And then, of course, the flip side, it helped them win against South Carolina and Kentucky. So it's very, very important when you're a defensive team, especially. It's got to get better. I think it will get better. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the kick return specialist, punter, as well as place kicking. I'd love to hear it in the comments. Of course, as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It helps so much, and I really appreciate it. So do that if you haven't already. We're starting to get close to 900. So thanks for the folks who have done that. And as always, go Tigers.